Their voices are getting heard every day. We read their articles. We like or maybe get shocked by some of their tweets. Heck, we even watch all their videos. I may play a small role in that. But what about your voice? What do you think? Well, now's your time. Welcome to Underdogs Unite. Hey. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Underdogs Unite. Today we are talking about a little thing, $1 billion. Today we're talking about a story that involves Christians spending $1 billion in advertising. And I want to know what you think about this topic, because I have some thoughts. I'm going to share my thoughts as we go through, but this show is about you guys. Like I said in the intro, it really is. Like, that's what I want this Friday stream to be about. It is not an AMA, and it is not Underdog Theology, even though I still had the timer because I forgot to make a new timer for this show. Oh well. But it's a new thing. It's a new thing that we can have some dialogue. I want to hear about you guys and what is going on in your minds about this topic. So this is our story today. We're basically just going to be focused on this and asking, just a few questions as we move along, because it's interesting. There's a reason. Like, I dropped the link in the chat. So if you are watching live, or maybe you're even on the replay, you can find the link. Eventually it'll be in the description of the video. I didn't put it in there, but you can find it in the chat if you're here with us. To a Washington Post article. Like, the first time that I saw this was actually from Julie Roy's on Twitter. And I was like, what? That seems like, to me, a little out there to be spending that kind of money on advertising in general. And then, especially when you start talking about the Super Bowl coming up. As anyone, like, here I'm in Canada, but anyone around the world knows what a Super Bowl commercial costs. Like, we're talking about $20 million. Like, this is not, spending $100,000 on advertising. This is $20 million that is being spent on one commercial. And that's just to get it on the air. Now, how much did you pay to make that commercial? That's another thing. So we're going to be looking at this Washington Post article and then just figuring out, like, what is this organization? Now, some of you might be familiar with He Gets Us. That is the company that is doing this. Let's head over to this screen. And apparently, even though everything was set up a minute ago, it's not going to show up, because that's the way it works. Sometimes it is not. That's weird. Come on, man. Do I just have to unplug and plug back in? Ecamm? Are we serious right now? Where is this? Why is this not working? What? You gotta be kidding me. I've had this open for the last half hour. Today I actually had stuff lined up. Why did it all of a sudden just not want to connect? And now it's saying, give me a camera source. I'm telling you. What is this? Camera A, camera B. Guys, never update Ecamm the day you're doing a stream, even if you did it hours ago, because there were a couple things that were being weird. All right, I'm going to do this. I know it's two versions of me. This show is not supposed to be about me. But what in the world is going on here? It was showing it just fine a minute ago. It's always something, guys. Always something. All right, let's try unplugging it this way and plugging it back in this way. Are you going to show up? You were showing up just fine just a minute ago. It is connected because it says not charging. That's how I know. What in the world? I don't want OBS. I'm so sorry, guys. I refuse to take the blame on this one just because it was set up like literally 5 minutes ago. I was running through stuff, making sure that we could watch video through like Safari in this because they have a couple videos I wanted to show. And now for some reason my iPad just won't connect. Let me go over here. And well, I guess I could just talk about He Gets Us for a minute and see what is going on with this thing. I'm going to turn off my iPad and see if that does the trick. So He Gets Us is an organization that basically does like online media for Jesus. And they have a call center that is more like, I think they're more focused on having people like chat with them online to give people an option of going to hegetsus.com. And if they have questions about their faith, they can go on to this website and be able to chat with someone and, at least try to get questions. Now, there was a lot of interesting stuff that happened in the SBC about this because the SBC had a partnership going, at least I think it was the North American Mission Board, had in some way a relationship with He Gets Us to where they were funding some of their evangelistic campaigns in at least the United States. And so that's interesting, right? Like, what is that about? But then some people didn't just think that it was interesting. Some people found it very suspicious. And they started doing a deep dive into this company and they started chatting with them. Now, there were a couple interesting individuals who were doing that, but basically they were trying to have this conversation with He Gets Us to kind of pin them in a corner on some of the more controversial issues that within Christian circles, and they pinned them. And they found out that, we will send you to affirming churches. We will, we'll basically, just let's talk about Jesus in this very vague way. And like doctrinally, at least according to me and those who are in my circle, would find this company very, it's a slippery slope theologically with these guys. So that's something that I think is important in the background of this as far as like who this company is and what they're trying to do. Let's see. Oh, there's my face again. Is it going to work? If not, I have no idea what is going on. This is not what I want. What is camera B? I don't have a camera A and camera B eCam. This is not camera A. I never named this. That is not OBS. How weird. Does it do it over here too? Can you just not connect an iPad anymore? I don't understand. I did the update and it was still connected and showed. That ruins a whole lot. Let's see. All right, let me try something real quick. Sorry, everyone. This is what happens when you try to do live streaming on a regular basis. Sometimes you got some messed up stuff that happens. Let's try, and maybe if I could click it from in the chat here, which I will come back to. There is no link in the chat. All kinds of stuff. Let's go. Washington Post. He Gets Us. 1 billion because they're spending $1 billion. All right. And let's add, maybe if I have to add it from here again. No, I don't want that. I don't know why it defaults. Why it doesn't give you an option before you do it. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is, I came back to eCam from OBS, which is all behind the scenes stuff that you guys don't care about. But I came back because OBS had glitches. I'm realizing that was probably a mistake. I guess I can do this. Here's what we'll do. It is not the way that I want to do this, but we will try to make do with this, and want it to be current application. So let me go over here. And does that show? Why doesn't that show? Did it show? It doesn't look like it's showing. I wonder why. Okay. Ecamm has some issues. Let's go over here. All right, now it's going to show that. Okay, well, all of that was so interesting for all of you, I'm pretty sure. Nope. But let's try to get through at least a little bit. Oh, now I gotta go back and get my sound coming through. Let's go with that. I think sound should be coming through. All right, guys. So sorry. Thanks for sticking with me if you did. All right, so the Washington Post says $100 million effort launched this year is blanketing cities and the web, aiming to redeem Jesus' brand. Did you know that Jesus had a brand? Let me know in the chat what you think about that phrase. Now, this is the Washington Post. They're not going to articulate things like super great, so I don't think they articulated that very well. Jesus' brand from the damage done by some of his followers. Billboards with messages like Jesus let his hair down too and Jesus went in all in too have been posted in major markets like New York City and Las Vegas in ads featuring black and white online videos about Jesus as a rebel, an activist, or a host of a dinner party have been viewed more than 300 million times, according to organizers. The He Gets Us campaign, funded by Signatary, a Christian foundation based in Kansas, will expand in the next few months with an updated website, an online store. Interesting. An online store where people can get free gear if they forgive someone or welcome a stranger, and an outreach program for churches, all leading up to a Super Bowl ad. John Lee, one of the chief architects of the campaign, said organizers hope to start a movement of people who want to tell a better story about Jesus and act like him. Our goal is to give voice to the pent-up energy of like-minded Jesus followers, those who are in the pews and the ones that aren't, who are ready to reclaim the name of Jesus from those who abuse it to judge, harm, and divide people, said Lee, a principal at Lerma, a cross-cultural advertising agency based in Dallas. Let's read one more paragraph here. Jason Vanderground, president of Haven, a branding firm based in Grand Haven, Michigan, said the movement hopes to bridge the gap between the story of Jesus and the public perception of his followers. The campaign has done extensive marketing research and found that while many Americans like Jesus, they are skeptical of his followers. So interesting right there. Basically, it sounds like they're going to try to, advertise all over the place, use social media, and do Facebook and Twitter and, all of the stuff, and basically share videos. They have 3 videos that they reference in this article. Jesus as a rebel, an activist, and a host of a dinner party. We're going to look at those, or at least I'm going to try to, if things are going to work properly. Oh my goodness, technical glitches. But they're going to also spend $20 million to get their ad into the Super Bowl. So what do you guys think about that? The idea of Christians spending that kind of money in advertising. Now, again, as someone who's theologically minded, like I have questions about their theology, and we'll talk about some of that as they're going through. But even like you heard some of the motivation, they think, and they go into the article a little bit about abuse that's happening in the church, which is a really significant problem, as I've talked about many times on this channel. Like that's huge. And they're trying to say like, hey, that stuff's happening, but we need to talk about Jesus rather than, have this be the story that people are always talking about. Another pastor convicted of something for abuse or something like that, or abuse happening in the church and the church not taking the right steps and handling it. And they want to focus on just Jesus. That sounds great. But then they also talk about, judgmentalism and division. And for me, like when I hear those things, or especially over the last week, right? Like here on my channel, I've talked about some controversial things this past week from Andy Stanley and all of that. Well, my ears get perked, right? Like I'm just like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? What are we judgmental over? Because we can be judgmental about a few things. Like we are supposed to judge righteously. It doesn't mean like, hey, you did that thing that I don't like, and so you're a horrible Christian, and yeah, the Bible doesn't talk about it, but you did it, and I think that that's terrible, that shouldn't be done in churches, all that kind of stuff. We're not talking about that necessarily, or maybe some of that is in there, but when I hear like division and judgmentalism, I start thinking that we're talking about more political things. And especially some of the stuff that I don't think that the practices were done right. But if you look up, you can probably Google around and find some of the stuff that was going on with the SBC and some of the questions that were asked, some of the answers that they got. That all makes me very skeptical of he gets us. But that's beside the point. Like that, I think it's an important thing that needs to be said. But just even the idea of spending upwards of $1 billion over 3 years in marketing. What do you think about that? Let's hop into the chat and see what you guys are saying. First, we got Caleb hopping in and saying, I'm glad you're doing an episode on this. I've seen it going around, but have not had a chance to really look into what it's all about. Glad to have you here, man. Michael says right off the bat, it's a mistake. It's a mistake to do that. This campaign is basically because we have a problem with our witness, but instead of fixing the discipleship problem we have, we are doing a marketing campaign. Interesting take, Michael. I think if we were to do discipleship right, that's what Michael's saying here. If we're to do discipleship right, then why would we need to spend $1 billion to get that message out? Now, I think it's fair to do marketing, right? Like, I don't think anyone in this chat is going to be like, the church shouldn't, in capital C church, the church shouldn't do any marketing. Like, marketing is good. We need to be wise about things. I do marketing all the time. Like, basically, I would say 60% of what I do on YouTube is marketing. Like, trying to figure out, what's the thumbnail that's going to draw people in? What's the message I want to get out? All of that kind of stuff. We do marketing all the time. Our churches do marketing. Our website is built in a certain way. That is marketing. Our bulletins, even in a way, are marketing. The things that we send out for Easter and Christmas and, whatever event we have going on, our Facebook pages, churches do marketing all the time. I don't think that's wrong. But when we're talking about witness, that's what Michael's getting at, our witness of basically trying to get the message of the gospel out to people in a way that they can hear it and see it. And I think that we need both, right? Like, you need words, not just actions, but actions more than words. But you do still need words. When we do that, like if we were doing discipleship properly, that people loved people and cared about their eternal destination and we're living in a way that's pleasing to God and that is focused on others and being caring and compassionate, then yeah, we wouldn't need, a $1 billion marketing campaign. I think that's fair. Bill, hey all. Hey, Bill. Sarah, it sounds derogatory to say Jesus needs a commercial, but I have seen the clips and I think why not spread truth? So much garbage being fed to everyone. I'm not bothered by the campaign. So, like a little bit of a difference of opinion there. So I appreciate you, Sarah, saying that. And like we'll look at the 3 commercials. I haven't seen everything that He Gets Us has ever made. So I want that said right off the bat. I've only taken a look at these 3 commercials and got to say, not a fan. Not a fan, but we'll talk about it. But there is truth in it. And so Sarah's point is that, the truth is getting out there. So, why is that a bad thing? Why should we stop the truth from getting out there? And there is quite a bit of truth, especially in the third one. Hopefully we'll get things working to be able to watch that. Oh, man. Looks like Murphy is practicing law at Dean's house. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of that probably said in this one. I'm telling you, it was working just fine. The stream was working, or like everything in Ecamm looked perfect. And I've been sitting down here for a half hour, just like going through a few things, tweaking a few things, and all of a sudden, just no connection between what I usually do. I run all of the video and Safari and looking at articles and all of that off of my iPad. And that's one of the things I love about Ecamm is that I can not have to have a dual monitor. I could just, scroll really easy. Apparently not today. Lael's here and says, I don't know how I feel about them spending that much money for this campaign, but better than the other dirty ads being shown today. All right. So like the point there, I think, is that they're going to see something. They're going to see something on that screen. So why not have it be a Christian message? I think that's a fair point. But another point here Lael makes is the amount of money. Like we're not just talking, even if we were just to go with the Super Bowl party, or sorry, that's where my mind goes. I want a party, but the Super Bowl ad, $20 million. Like that's a lot. Like what, think of, at least for me, when I think of it, and I think that's what Lael's trying to say here, is like, what else could have been done with that $20 million, right? Or especially when you start getting into like $1 billion. $1 billion. That's a lot of money. Like, that's an insane amount of money. So Michael is replying to Sarah and saying, I don't mind the ads themselves. Many I've seen are good, but I think they paint a picture that modern evangelicalism in particular fails to match what the ads show. Interesting. David is hopping in and says, as a pastor, my hope is that seeing their ads sends someone my way who wants to know Christ. God can certainly use this platform for his glory. Okay, that's a good point. So he's saying as a pastor, he pastors a church, that he wants people to get sent their way. So why not, if they hear that message on TV or, wherever they are on social media and they get an ad, that they should go and find a church. And there is something to that. I want to make it clear. He Gets Us does have some kind of a deal with churches. I saw something about like 20,000 churches they have lined up ready to assist. But these churches don't actually add any money to like this pot of $1 billion that they're going to spend. So they have some churches lined up. A couple things about that, just again, for me, like some of this might be remnants of a fundamentalist brain. Like it's hard to get all that stuff out of my head, I will admit. Now, some of you guys are jerks about it. So don't be mean about the fact that I have a past, because we all have a past. We all have baggage that we take from past belief systems that we might have been a part of. But maybe this is just remnants of that. But I also go like, wait, so who else is in on this? Like who else, if there's 20,000 churches, like we all know, like if you start naming churches that you know of, how many of those churches are good churches and how many of those churches are bad churches that you wouldn't send someone to? If there's 20,000, I would, if just thinking for me, I'd be interested to know, like, who are these churches? And what do they believe about the gospel? Because that could go downhill pretty quick of like what churches are involved with this thing. But again, I have a background, so like maybe that's just speaking out of that baggage, but that's where my mind goes. That's an interesting thought, Michael, says Sarah. Lael's Creations, but the one thing that makes me raise my eyebrow is that they're not affiliated with any particular church or denomination. Yes, this isn't like, the Methodist Church getting together, raising funds and putting something out there. That you can't really nail them down theologically. Now, they do have some of their beliefs, I think, listed on their website. But it'd be interesting to know, like, what do they actually believe? And that was the problem with the SBC stuff, because the SBC, they were very concerned about their beliefs and, had these conversations, and it seemed that they were pretty iffy on some really important things. B Flat is here and says, I don't know much about it, but I've seen these ads and I think it's worth it. All right. Bill, I never heard of these folks. It hasn't shown up on my stuff. I think with $1 billion, it probably will eventually. Like you watch enough Christian stuff just from watching my stuff on YouTube, they're going to find you, Bill. They're going to find you. They're going to hunt you down. They're going to send you all kinds of videos. David, I come back to Philippians 1:12-20. Paul said people were around him preaching Christ for selfish gain, but he was grateful because Christ was preached. It gives the true disciples an opportunity. Yeah, I always find that to be an interesting passage because it is true. Like, you think of people that are different from your perspective, and they still love Jesus and they're preaching Jesus. And while, you look at it and go like, I don't know, man, I think he's in it for the wrong reasons or something like that. At the end of the day, Jesus is getting preached, and that's great. And we should be thankful for that. There is a part of me though, that goes like, well, that's about motivations for those speakers, not necessarily about like the content. And for me, that's probably what would be most concerning when I think about 20,000 churches that I don't know. Like, I would be concerned about like the content of their beliefs and what they're saying to these people. And, it doesn't mean that everyone has to be a Baptist. That's not what I'm saying. But, if someone's living, again, I'm going to stick with what's been going on this week. If someone's going to live a sinful lifestyle and they're going to say it's not a sinful lifestyle, or at least not something they need to repent of, like that's something that would be like deeply concerning for me. And a lot of denominations, at least, I shouldn't say denominations, churches within denominations are kind of giving up on that. And we see more and more pastors saying that certain sinful activities are not sinful activities. And so I would just get really concerned. But I get what you're saying about like the motivations. But yeah, I would be concerned more about like the content of their preaching. So Peter is here and says, Jesus don't need a marketing rep. I mean, yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Peter. Like that, the gospel is going to get out there. But then, my mind also goes back to like the classic story of David Brainerd, the missionary to the indigenous people here in North America. He went to his mission board, and they were super Calvinists, like beyond Calvinists, hyper Calvinists. And they said something to the effect of like, when God chooses to save the heathens, he will do it without your help or mine. And I think this is kind of a similar thing. Like, marketing is needed for churches. Like, again, we all have websites. Here I am on the internet talking to you about Jesus, about the things revolving around Jesus. So marketing happens all the time. So I'm fine with the idea of marketing. It's just, for me, I go to the money and then also the theology behind this group. I want to know about that. In an ideal world where I could be like, okay, it's not necessarily my denomination, but it's like, they believe the right things about the gospel and they do it. I don't know. Maybe I would be more inclined to be like, okay. Sorry, got something in my throat. Mitchell says, I mean, putting ads about Jesus is fine. However, I do think that they are portraying Jesus accurately according to the scriptures. I do not. Big word there, not. Therefore, it is going to cause more confusion on who Jesus is again. So, how much have you watched, Mitchell? I'd be interested to know, because I've only seen these 3 videos. David, if they have $1 billion behind them, they aren't going to be silenced. Romans 8:28 comes to mind. God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him. Okay. Yeah, which Jesus are they preaching? That's a good question. Let's, and David says, I agree with your skepticism. So let's take a look if we can figure it out with the audio and everything. Oh my goodness, this stupid streaming stuff, man. Always something. I'm going to come back here and just hope. Let's just hope for a second. Does it just automatically work? Wouldn't that be fantastic? Nope. I don't understand. What would it be? What if... Nope, that's not something. I'm just tinkering around with it just for a second, and we'll see. Like, if I do that, if it's an entire screen. No, but that's not it either. Why doesn't it show up? I have a feeling that this would be some kind of a, you got to turn off eCam and start it up again, and then maybe it would work. I don't know. But let's go over, how did I do that? Which one did I have? Was it in vid? It was in this one, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. So I'm hopeful that this will work. But let's go here and let's watch this. Ooh, an ad. Everybody loves an ad. Okay. So I don't know about you guys. When I watched that, and I watched it before, I go like, it sounds to me like a weird youth pastor sermon, like that you get like kids that don't usually come to your youth group. They did for mine, but like they don't come to your youth group very often, and makes you a little uncomfortable, and you're just like, Jesus was kind of a gangster as well, like something like really weird like that. Like Jesus was a rebel. I mean, like, yes, in a way. But I don't think that you could say it necessarily like that. What do you guys think about that ad of Jesus as a rebel? Let's look at the one where they talk about him. Let me fix a little bit of the audio. I could tell it was a little bit loud on you guys, I think. But let's see the activist. Jesus was an activist. We'll do that so the song does come on. Although I do love some Inside Llewyn Davis, which is why it's coming up. But okay, so there's that. I don't know. I hear that, and first off, when he says he believed he could change the world, like, what are you saying about Jesus there? That he believed he could do something. He's God. He didn't just like, oh, I hope, which is what I get when I hear like, I believe, something will happen. I hear like, I hope something will happen. To me, that's a little concerning. Like, of he believed he could change the world, by turning the other cheek, which is, I mean, it's like if you listen to these things, it's not the gospel. Okay, so like the people who are like, well, it's getting the gospel out there. That's fantastic. It's not the gospel. It's just like a general mini sermon. Oh, there was no sound. There was no sound at all. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, oh man, all kinds of issues. Why wasn't there any sound on that? There should have been. See, yeah, it should have been like coming through the Zoom. I don't understand why it wouldn't be sound. Let me try something. All right, let me go back over to this and come over here and have it playing. It's not coming through at all, is it? Well, I guess that's just how it's going to be today. I'm really sorry. I apologize. I had everything lined up for everything to work properly. And then this eCam update happened earlier today, and it still looked like everything was working just fine. But apparently not. So I apologize for that. Like, I wanted today to go off without a hitch, but looks like that's not the way it was going to be. In the Rebel one, they talked about basically Jesus being a rebel, and the Pharisees were out to get him, but they were talking about like the religious leaders of the day, and he was frustrated with the system, which is kind of an odd way to put it. But who hasn't heard a story or a sermon about Jesus as a rebel, right? Like, you hear it all the time. But the other one about an activist, they had the phrase of he believed he could change the world through turning the other cheek, which I have issues with, like, as you just heard. You probably got that audio, you just didn't get the other one. But yeah, so then they have a third one that they talk about, where it is, like, I guess I could at least show you it. Let's go back over here, and they have a dinner party, and I think I could put the closed captions on. So hope is really like the key on this one. Struggling with depression, hurts and pains. And really focusing on like this dinner table idea. I guess I don't need this if I don't have to listen to the audio. I'll be in the same boat with you guys. So the idea of just like this table and bringing people to the table, and not letting like these differences get in the way of that, and our hurts and pains. He struggled like we did. I actually like this one. Now, if this is the one that they use in the Super Bowl, I'd be okay with that. As far as like, I still think 20 million is way too much money to be spending on this kind of marketing, but I at least understand it. So like that's the problem though. Like some of these commercials, like, they don't actually have the gospel. They have little snippets of characterization of Jesus that, at least in some of these, I find troubling. Now, let me know if you guys like, I guess maybe you didn't get to watch it. Maybe you haven't seen it before, but maybe if you come back and you watch them, maybe after the stream, you can come back in the comments and let me know what you think about their marketing of Jesus. For me, I find it to be like, hey, Jesus also had some stuff that he went through. Like he also was, frustrated at the system. He also did all these things. And sometimes we stretch things when we do that. Like, yes, he was a man, and a man of sorrows, and was tempted in every way that we are. He went through our struggles, right? Like, that's what makes him an incredible high priest, because he's been where we've been. Like, I think that's true. Obviously, that's scripture. But like, the way that they put it is interesting, and also the fact that they give no answers other than, like, go to the website. Now, anyone who knows anything about, like, even YouTube here, I have thumbnails that I make. You might not even know what that is, but like, basically like the icon on your computer, right? Like, you click on that picture, it takes you to your program. That's what YouTube has. YouTube has thumbnails, those pictures that you click on to watch the video. Like, it is a great video if I get over 10% click-through rate on one of my thumbnails. That means that I did my thumbnail really well. And that's an easy thing, because you came to YouTube to watch something. Like, you didn't tune into the Super Bowl to watch an ad of a vague picture of Jesus. Like, so the click-through rate, or like how many people are actually going to go to that website, like the idea of actually following through with the marketing, that's going to be really low. I'd be interested to know, like, after the Super Bowl, like, how many people actually use that thing. Because, like, there's a part of me that goes, like, this feels like grandstanding a little bit to me. Like, again, I've been called cynical before, skeptical, overly skeptical, all of that. So for me, it just kind of seems like, like, we're going to go above and beyond, like, this amazing thing to rally people and be like, we're going to get a Super Bowl commercial. And, like, you think about, like, the effectiveness of that. And I don't know if it's as effective as it is costly. And that's where I go with it. But let's hop back in and see what you guys are thinking. Yeah, Ruth, that was a good idea. Turning on the captions. Again, I'm so sorry about that. Everything was working just fine. Let's see. David says, remember, this won't necessarily appeal to Christian academia or seminarians. Just like that weird youth pastor's message, it can still open a dialogue with a sound teacher. That's true. That's a really good point. Yeah, it might not be my jam, and it might not be your jam, but maybe it is someone's jam. My only concern in that kind of way is, like, should it be? Like, should it be their jam? Like, maybe it will affect someone. But yeah, just, like, again, like, if it is that, like, gathering around the table one, I think that's actually pretty effective. And if it's in that vein, I think I would be okay with it. I still think it's too much to spend on that. But if it's like that just for the Super Bowl, but again, then it goes to, okay, well, now the idea is, what do they do with that? Especially if they don't have Christians in their life. Like, what do they do with that? Which I'll get into my idea that I think would be great for marketing in this way. Ruth says, just from the pictures, I'd be concerned that it's presenting a Jesus in our image instead of how he is presented in the Bible. That's also my concern. Let's see. Bob says, rebellion is condemned in the Bible. I mean, like, yeah, rebellion against, like, God and, like, against the government. So yeah, but, like, I think they're trying to get, like, the attitude, like James Dean, like, ooh, rebel without a cause. Although James Dean did some stuff. All right. Yeah. Let's see. Peter says if they had a Super Bowl ad with the gospel, that would be good. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think about, some of these, like, have you been driving? Like, I live out, rural area. And so there's not a lot of billboards, but, there are some. And I'm sure you've seen it as you've driven by somewhere where they have, like, a church puts a billboard out. And it's like, hey, something, and sometimes it's like super corny and you're like rolling your eyes as you look at it. I don't like those ones. If they're advertising like, hey, this is where that church is located and this is what we're doing, like that's something, because you're getting, that message out of where you are to go and get more. But then also I prefer, like, just put a scripture verse up there. Just put a scripture verse up there and let God's word do the work. Like, I'm sure that is effective to some people. Like it, depending on the cost, like of how effective is that? I don't know. But I see what you're saying here. David says, I don't trust he gets us at all to do the discipling. That's where we come in, Dean. You grew up in a church and are now learning more sound doctrine. All we need is an open door. Sure. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Bill, I don't get that they said he believed as if he didn't expect the results. Anyone reading Isaiah 53:5 knows God tells us what was going to happen. Okay, honestly, that irks me. Yeah. And let's see. I can see where you're coming from, David. Yeah. All right, so a little bit of a difference of opinions, but that's kind of what I like about this thing, the idea of this thing. When tech is working properly, to be able to get some of your ideas about some of this stuff and might help me form my opinion about things. I don't have a firm opinion about everything. Isn't that crazy? You're a Christian. You're supposed to have your mind made up about everything. But yeah, so now, like David keeps on bringing up discipleship, and I think that's important. Now, if I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking that discipleship is like the end game, right, of this idea of marketing, okay? That, like, you want them to hear the gospel, believe in Jesus, and, like, follow through with hopefully involvement in a local church, hopefully, progress in their Christian walk with Jesus, all of that, and that's discipleship. So if you want that to be the goal, are there better ways to do that? Like, is there a better way to do this idea of marketing rather than spending $1 billion over 3 years to get little ads that have this, vague, I'll just say it, for my opinion, very vague about vague message about Jesus. Are there better ways with $1 billion over 3 years? I think so. I sometimes I see these kind of things from parachurch organizations, and I get a little like, do we really need that? Like, what if, you had a marketing firm and they're not getting money from local churches. At least they said, at least the 20,000 volunteer churches, they're getting zero money from these churches for this stuff. So somehow they're raising this $1 billion outside of the church, like, so Christian businesses and businessmen and women, I'm assuming, like, giving money to this organization to do this marketing campaign. What about if they just, like, advertise for churches? Like, if they had, like, some kind of program to, like, get and make sure that they spread the love around, that it's not like just, hey, all Presbyterians get this, or, 40% Baptist and 30%, like, if they spread the love around, like, of churches in that area, and they just did the marketing for them, I think that would probably be more effective. If the end game is discipleship, if the end game is not just them hearing, being entertained for 30 seconds through this vague story of Jesus, if it's beyond that, which they claim to be, like, that their focus is they want them to, like, hear about Jesus and believe in Jesus, and that's great. So if that's the idea, for me, I go like, why not just give money, not to churches, okay? Because like there's churches, a lot of churches don't know how to market. Their websites suck. If they have websites, there are still people, maybe you don't believe me, there are still churches here in 2023 that do not have websites at all. Maybe they just have a Facebook page, maybe not even that. Like, so don't give the money to the churches for the marketing, because that'll end up terrible. And it'll look bad and it'll be awful. But what if you did like marketing for churches in those local areas, or even you didn't even have to like put up, we're not talking about billboards, we're talking about like social media posts. What if you did amazing marketing, which like their whole company is built on this idea of marketing, and obviously they're successful at it. They're going to be able to raise $1 billion over 3 years. It's pretty successful. So, and their stuff looks good. Their website looks nice. I don't know if that's the updated website that they talked about or not, but like, it seems like they're good at what they do. But what if they put that kind of effort and that kind of style behind marketing for local churches? And I know that there would be like a fight about like who gets that and, all of that. I'm sure that there would be plenty of people who just wouldn't want it. But if they had some kind of like sign up to where they can go through a process and be approved, and then they, especially if you're talking about like the things that they say, at least the CEO says, or not CEO, who was this guy? This Vanderground fella who works there. Like if they're really concerned about like division and judgmentalism, and even later in the article they talked about abuse. Like if they're interested in those things, they could have some kind of stipulation within this process to be approved of focusing on those things and having to meet certain criteria. And then they just marketed for those churches. And like maybe even still some of this like story. But then they had like, if you're interested, not go to hegetsus.com, but here's a church in your area. Like, cause you can market on social media for a location. I don't think that you're allowed to market based on like religious preferences anymore, which like some people are upset about, but like, I don't think like that sounds right, that you shouldn't be able to market that way. But location, geographical kind of marketing, that you can do that. Like, and you can be like, go to this church, go to this website, and it's this church's website. And here's, I don't know, like you probably don't want to put like the pastor's picture because then, it opens you up. I don't know. Maybe that's something. Because what if something happens at that church and you're associated with it? I guess I didn't think about that. But in my mind, I think it could work, being able to market for churches. And I think that would be a better way because you get them something like really tangible rather than just go to this website or, we'll have a chat online. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Is that a dumb idea? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I would like to know what you think. What if you had, let's put it this way. If you had $1 billion to spend over 3 years, no talk about like what island you would buy. Okay. But you had to spend it in marketing in some way to get the gospel out. How would you do it? Like that's my idea of doing like marketing for churches, like taking over like in at least one way their social media marketing, not their website. Cause anyone who's ever had to build a website for somebody knows how frustrating that could be. But like, doing like their Facebook marketing, or not even their marketing, but your marketing for them. I don't know. Something to think about. So Stuart is here and says, I'd say Jesus did change the world by turning the other cheek. Like in a way, but for me, I just go like, you got 30 seconds. And I know like you want them to click on the thing, right? You want them to go to hegetsus.com. But for me, I go like the follow through is going to be so small on that. Like again, 10% is amazing. Most of my videos are about 5% click-through rate. Well, not most. They're like higher than that. But like that would be okay, 5%. And then I go like, how much less is that going to be? Because no one's watching the Super Bowl for this. How small of a percentage are they going to get from that? Like, I mean, it's less than 1%. It's way down there. Like way, way less than 1%. And I just go like, why not get the gospel out to them in like an actual way rather than being, I don't know, in some way like poetic about it. Like a little bit more blunt. I think they should be. I don't know why I'm talking like Yoda, but I think they should be a little bit more blunt about the gospel than just being like, he changed the world through turning the other cheek. Like in a way, in like a poetic way, yes, but like I would want them to be a little bit more forthright if they have like this, you only get one shot, one opportunity, you know, like Marshall would have said. Michael, who is funding this? So let me find that once again. I will put, if you come back later, I'll put the Washington Post article in the description. I should have before. But it's funded by Signatory, a Christian foundation based in Kansas that will expand in the next few months. Let me click on this Signatory. Nope, it's just another article. Okay. But that's who it is. I don't know. People with lots of money. My thoughts, marketing is cool for where to get answers, but not best for the message itself. Okay. Yeah. Advertising all the divisions in Protestantism is just embarrassing. Yeah. This is one of those things. Like I talked about it, a couple weeks ago. You know, there was a guy who was tweeting, about, you know, Christianity Today, like they're making so much money off of, you know, throwing shade at the church basically over like abuse issues. And that is different because you're reporting. But when you're like making an advertisement and you're like focusing on, man, the church gets it wrong. Like, it's just like, I don't know. That's a little weird. I get you. David, I don't think HGU is focused on discipleship. They think about Genesis 50. God used Joseph's brothers' evil as a way to save them all. I just mean since we cannot control HGU, we can make the best of this. Okay. All right. I hear you. It would be cool to see a message or two on reading the Bible or how to find a good church congregation. Yeah. Like, I think appealing to like a broad thing of like, hey, we all have pains. Like there is something that like resonates with everyone because every one of us has pains, and that's true. But I think focusing on the like, have you been depressed like this last Christmas, you know, like this Christmas season? Have you been depressed? Like, I think that's more narrow, and I think that's better because you're focusing on like, yeah, that probably the people that are actually going to click on that thing or go to hegetsus.com, being more specific. Or like, have you had questions about the Bible? Like, that's way more specific than like you've been thinking about religion, right? Like those kinds of things of being more specific, I think are helpful. Niching down, if you will, if to use like the YouTube stuff. My church doesn't have a website. Haha, just YouTube and Facebook. David, you gotta get a website, man. You might not need it as much depending on where you're at and who your people are, but every church should have a website. JT, wait, but Dean, the points of the ads were to promote Jesus specifically because they feel there are churches that aren't doing that well. That's a good point. You know, they're like, okay, so they just want to get Jesus out there. Okay, but then like what? Right? Like, especially if you're going to be talking poorly of churches as you're doing it, which is some of their stuff. Not all, but some of their stuff is. Then it's like, I don't know, like, okay, well, now they're interested in Jesus. Now what? Like, for me, like, I mean, like, yes, they can find a Bible, but you haven't even talked about the Bible, you know? So, or yes, they can go find a church, but you're not talking about going to church. And it's not just going to church on a Sunday. I mean, like going to a church and trying to talk to a pastor, or, doing something about their questions. Like I get, yeah, they're just trying to promote Jesus, which like, let me get this straight. Okay. Or let me say this clearly, even though I can't talk clearly today. The idea of getting Jesus' name out there isn't the problem. It's just like, what do you do with it? And how responsible are you with the idea of $1 billion and what could be done? That's all. That's my concerns. And maybe those are wrong concerns, but that's what this show is, to give concerns and talk about things and to have your guys' opinion. But you are right. Like, that's true. They think that churches are not doing that well, so they want to do it well. Like, that's their attempt, at least. David, if I have $1 billion to spend, I'm doing all I could to get people to open their Bibles, visit a church, or even check out a YouTube channel like this. Yeah. And you have Paul became all things to all people so he could be in some. Yeah. Yeah, but how? Like that's my thing. Like I agree. Like, to get people to open up their Bibles, visit a church, all that. Win some. Yeah, that's yeah. JT, I'm not saying I'd do things with an ad campaign, but your alternative promotes good churches with the hope of them meeting Jesus there. It's not exactly the same. That's true. My idea is a little bit different, because for me, I'm going next step, because like, I don't want them to just hear about Jesus. Like, I do want them to hear about Jesus. Don't clip this out. All right. I want them to hear about Jesus, but then it's like, what do you do with those thoughts about Jesus? Okay, they heard about it, but again, like in the marketing, they don't have anything about, like, well, you can learn more about Jesus in the Bible. Like, I know that's corny, but so is the rest of their stuff. So like, not as corny as just being like, and you can find more about him in the Bible. I don't know. Do we need, like, what was her name? Downey, touched by an angel, to show up and just be like, I'm an angel sent by God and he loves you. Like, those were always, like, even as a kid, like, we always watched that, and Promised Land, back when I think CBS was like just basically doing Christian stuff. There was like a whole day of just like Christian TV shows. But I don't think we need to do that necessarily. But in some way, being like, you can find more about him. Like, I guess that's hegetsus.com, and you're hoping eventually to give him the Bible. But again, like, the idea of people following through with your marketing is so small. I just want a little bit more, I guess, in the actual ad. That's like the next step. And it doesn't have to be, church, but like, how do you learn more about Jesus? Like, I think that there needs to be more in the initial ad, rather than just be like, here's a website. It feels kind of sneaky, like too sneaky of marketing. And like, that might seem clever, but then like, how many people are going to follow through with that? And it's like, is it clever, or did he just miss an opportunity? Like, that's where my mind goes. The comments on the ads on YouTube are interesting to see actual responses of unsaved who they are wanting to be their audience. Don't trust YouTube comments. Like, I'm sure that they are interesting and you might want to check them out. But don't trust YouTube comments. I'll just say that as a YouTuber, don't trust the comments. Ruth, absolutely. As people who are saved, I think we can lose sight of how impactful a simple 30 seconds about Christ can be. Fair enough. Bill says, yes, specificity is a good approach. Didn't think about that. Good one. Stuart says, our church has a website, but I'm not sure most members real is either. If I don't link to something on the Facebook page, people think it doesn't exist. Oh, that's true. Most people, like, especially depending on the age, most people are just going to go to your Facebook. That's true. Every church should have a Facebook and a website. Like, don't just have a website and don't just have Facebook. You need both, because you need to load up stuff, and Facebook is horrible about like having actual places where you can just put video, where you can put audio, where you can, put a link to something. Like it gets buried in that timeline. Bill, I'm looking at their stuff on my phone. My only concern is the generic approach, kind of neither hot or cold. Yeah, and I think that's an attempt to be like what David was saying, all things to all people. So, like, I think that they're trying to reach to the broadest audience. For me, I just go, if you're like that, that's a good way to do marketing in general. But like in this kind of context where you want people to make like a real decision, I hope that we want it to be that they make an actual decision about Jesus. Then I think you need to be a bit more specific in the original ad. That's just my opinion. I saw more comments that were implying it was hypocritical and they were not impressed or drawn to him. More of the positive comments were by ones that would probably claim to be Christians. Yeah. Noted Dean about the comments. I'm just saying, like those comment sections, there are entire videos that I've just given up. I've given up on policing the comments. Like it's just whatever. I'll let the trolls have that video or that video. They could just like have their little domain, but I'll fight them in the other ones. But yeah. All right. So there's a lot of differences of opinion on this thing, and I kind of expected there to be. But again, for me, it goes back to like, you only get 30 seconds, like, especially with like an ad like that, like, especially like the $20 million Super Bowl ad, you only get 30 seconds. I think that the time could be spent a little bit better. And then again, like if the end game is like discipleship, I think that their system of how they do it, I don't know, it just wouldn't be what I do. And then I am a little concerned on how vague they are about certain things and how they word things. But, if it is this dinner party one that they put at the Super Bowl, I'll be happy they aired it. It wouldn't be exactly the way I would have done it, but I don't have $1 billion or $20 million to put a Super Bowl ad. Otherwise, I'd do one for this show. I probably shouldn't because like my tech doesn't work, but it is what it is. Anyways, all right. So this is fun. This is fun to hear your guys' opinions about it. Like I think I came in a little hotter on this of like being totally against it, and you guys kind of walked me back a little bit. So I appreciate that. We could learn from each other a little bit. That's what I like about this idea of doing this Friday stream of Underdogs Unite. We could actually have a discussion about it and learn from each other. I think that's important. All right. So, hey, here's something. Just a little bit of a, end of the marketing thing. I want the funnel to get you to go somewhere. If you like movies, all right, not theology, not church stuff. If you like movies, I have a movie channel that I started, as a little hobby, to get away from a little bit of the heavy stuff that we deal with on a regular basis, to have a little bit of fun. And I'm going to be doing a live stream tonight over on my movie channel. You can find it on my YouTube channel if you go to the channels thing tab. It'll be in there, Dean Talks Movies. So if you like movies, go over there. If you don't, then you don't need to. Like, even if you're like, oh, I want to help Dean out. If you don't like movies, it's not for you. But if you do like movies, head over there. And on Monday, we'll be doing Underdog Theology. I almost said the name of this show again. Underdog Theology. Not sure what we're going to be talking about. But, hey, if you want to drive the discussion on this Friday stream, even more than just in the comments, hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on Instagram at Grumpy Baptist, Twitter at Dean Lentini, and send me a link of a story that you would like to talk about, and maybe a little bit of a couple sentences on what you think about that topic and why you think it would be an interesting thing for us to discuss. So we could do another show next Friday and talk about that. Like I'll pick it if you guys don't send me stuff, but if you have something you want to talk about, let's talk about that. So you can send that to me on Twitter or Instagram, and I will see you on Monday. I hope that you have a great weekend, like a really, really, really good one. See ya.